Right, people in Lansing are working on it right now, and joining us to talk about it are Brad Williams, the Detroit Regional Chamber's Vice President of Government Relations, and Pete Lund, State Director of Americans for Prosperity. Brad, first of all, Chamber doesn't like the House plan. Is the Senate plan any better?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think the Senate plan is a step in the right direction. We understand that fixing the roads is going to cost something. It's going to either cost something in reduced services from the state, or it's going to cost more at the pump. We've always believed and continue to believe that the people who use the roads should be the ones who are paying for the roads, and that's why we strongly support the Senate's efforts to look at the gas tax as a part of the solution to fix our roads.
It's a big part of it too, 15 cents over 3 years, right?
Yeah, 15 cents over 3 years. Of course, another half of it comes from the general fund, and there's some level of concern as to what that could mean for future state services. The general fund always has pressure on it, and that's going to continue. But I think, you know, moving the gas tax up, indexing it to inflation, that's a really good step in the right direction.
Pete, let's get over to you now. What are your thoughts on this Senate plan compared to what the House passed?
Well, first of all, I think we still need to figure out a little bit more of exactly what the Senate plan is. We're hearing bits and pieces of it. And actually, as we're sitting here talking right now, the Senate actually has a committee discussing it. So we still want to figure it all out. But I think the important thing is that we try to find a way to minimize the tax increase. We don't need more revenues. What we need to do is budget in a way that sets roads as a high priority. That's what budgeting is setting priorities, and budgets need to make sure that roads are way higher on that priority list.
Now, Pete, you say that we need to minimize the tax increase, but basically your group says no to virtually any tax.
Well, I don't think we need higher taxes on gas at all. The problem is that we're one of only 4 or 5 states in the country that actually has a tax on gas that doesn't go to the roads. Our sales tax, there's 6% of every dollar you spend on the gas. It doesn't go to help the roads at all. It goes to other things. If you could just take that money, take those dollars from the sales tax on gasoline and put it directly to the roads, we'd have the problem solved.
Yeah, Brad, I wonder, though, if you think that it is even possible to have a sustainable plan without a tax increase. Is there enough money in the budget to move around?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not. I mean, we're talking about a plan that has to, at a minimum, be $1.2 billion. That's a minimum, not the maximum. It probably should be more than that, and it looks like the Senate plan is just that. There's not very many pots of money where you can come up with $1.5 billion in the state budget. The general fund is only about $10 billion annually, and that funds our prisons, our parks, and all the services that residents demand of their state and local governments. So, you know, this isn't going to be free. You can cut the money out of the state budget, but it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you in your in having to close prisons. It's going to have to cost you in healthcare spending. It's going to have to cost you in higher education or revenues to your local units of government that pay for cops and firefighters.
Yeah, Pete, I know you have something to say about that.
Well, of course, it's typical. Anytime you talk about shifting money away from some people, people are going to complain. But again, this doesn't come down to, you know, throwing senior citizens out and kids not ever going to school again. What it comes down to is the people who are making these decisions saying roads are a top priority. Again, if you take the money that is paid, tax dollars that are paid on gasoline, and put it to the roads, you'll solve that problem.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what the people of the state want, and that's what I hear is they truly want those tax dollars to go directly to the roads.
Hey, Pete, while I have you...
well, Pete, that's exactly what Proposal 1 did, and the voters said pretty clearly that's not what they wanted.
Well, it's not exactly what Proposal 1 did.
Proposal 1 didn't do that
That's
at
not
all.
what it did. It was too confusing, I think, was the problem. It shifted money.
Was the most convoluted way of spending money.
Well, but part of it was that the gas tax itself, that money would go to the roads, but the reason, and then part of the sales tax would go to education and the things that gas tax used to go to. So we've made our point. It's convoluted.
We want to move on from that. Pete, I'll give you first crack at this one right now. Regardless of the House or the Senate plan you're talking about, they're really kicking a lot, about $700 million worth in future money that they haven't even decided exactly where it might come from. It may be cuts, it may be revenue. Does that concern you that they're really coming up short of paying for what they really need?
Well, of course, you're always worried about that, but you have to understand, anything that they pass now, they can change a year or two later anyway. We've seen that. We've been promised rollbacks in our income tax for years, and that went away as well. When Governor Granholm increased the income tax, it was supposed to roll back to 3.9%, and that never happened. So, you know, you never know what the future is going to hold with the legislature. And I hope that's why we need to make sure that we're not sitting there taking a tax cut or a tax increase now and hoping for a tax cut down the road.
And Brad, your final thoughts on this. What do you think we'll see in the end?
Well, I hope we see a strong plan that gets our roads fixed. I mean, it's too important to keep kicking the can down the road. I think the best example is, just this week, we're going to have literally thousands of people coming into Michigan to vacation and spend their money, and we're not sending a very welcoming message, as soon as they cross that state line, and recognizing that the roads are just in terrible condition, and we have to do better. We must do better, and we think the Senate is moving towards the right direction.
All right, Brad Williams, Pete Lund, thank you both for your time today.
But gas taxes being 15 cents higher aren't a way to welcome them either.
Right. Thanks to both of you. Coming up after the break, we're going to hear reaction from the House about this possible plan, so we hope you stay tuned for that.
Also still ahead.